All right, let's talk about garment labels. This is chapter 12 in your text. So garment labels are sewn or printed in garments, and they will contain certain information that is required by law, including fiber content, country of origin, the manufacturer identification number, care instructions, and then there's voluntary information that can be added in, such as size and brand logo. Garment labels should be affixed and legible for the useful life of the apparel item. Affixed means stitched down or somehow securely adhered. Garment labels are selected for an item based on location of the label. Are we going to put it on the inside or the outside? The type and design of the garment itself, how the label will come in contact with the wearer's skin, the intricacy or simplicity of the label's content, such as logos, graphic art, or words. What is the fabric of the garment? What is the brand? What's the overall quality, price point, and then how much information do we want to disclose? There are a variety of garment label types. They are created by manufacturers out of natural fibers and synthetic fibers, and they can be woven or printed. Woven labels are more durable and they will maintain their appearance after repeated washes. Materials that are used for sew-in labels include acetate, cotton, bamboo, polyester, leather, suede, PVC, polyvinyl chloride, silicone, and rubber. The main garment label types that we're going to go over are woven, printed, tagless, which is a type of heat transfer, leather and imitation leather. We'll go over suede and imitation suede, molded PVC, rubber, silicone, rubber tape, and ribbon tape. Woven labels, garment labels, is produced with a loom using either a damask, satin, twill, or plain weave construction. And you have to have a minimum of 2 different colored sets of yarns. And this is where the information about the garment is woven as part of the fabric's construction. And woven labels can be sewn on the inside or the outside of a garment. So looking here at this label, the Beatles label, here's the front side. This is the fashion side, and it says, here's our brand. And then look on the back side, and you can see all of these loose threads. That is how you know it's a woven, because the black thread is coming through on the front, and then the rest of it has to be loose, so you can have this white background. Here's some other examples of woven labels. Up here in the right corner is another example of a woven label where they wanted to have the blue on the front, and in order to do that, they had to have the blue loops on the back. This is an Under Armour one. Here's an example of location where you have a woven tag sewn down on the hem of a shirt. Here you have a woven tag sticking out in the side seam, and then your most traditional place is right up against the neckline. Printed labels are usually a back satin, twill, or plain weave, or they can be non-woven fabric tapes too. And this is where the label information is screen printed on or rotary printed on a continuous roll. These are typically sewn on the inside of garments. And so you buy this continuous roll of your logo or whatever you want to print on the inside, and then you cut those out. So if you look at this picture here, you can see that you'll cut right here. You'll cut right here, and on this bottom one you'd cut here and cut here, and then probably fold down each edge and just stitch this in somewhere. When you're doing this type of garment label, you'll need at least one other, because this just says country of origin, and this just says the brand name. So obviously they're going to need another label somewhere else that has the rest of the required information. Here another couple examples of printed labels, and you can tell this is printed. Look down here at this Dirty Dancing one. So here's the print, and then if you look on the inside, there are no loose threads, so that's how you know it's screen printed down. Here's another example of it being printed in the roll, and it's got its cut lines, so you know you cut, and this is probably folded right there. You can also print onto plastic and use those as size label tags. So when you're looking at labels to try and figure out if it's printed or if it's woven, you always want to look at the front of it and the back of it. Okay, the next type, tagless, is just a heat transfer technique. This is where the label information is thermally transferred directly to the inside of a garment rather than stitched down. Tagless labels are really soft against the skin and don't cause irritation like some of the sew-in labels. This has been really popular in athletic apparel. So like we've got our Climax Adidas over here. And some companies, what they'll do, like Carter's right here in the middle, is instead of doing the screen printing like Adidas where they have that space and sort of background. Same with this Blue Boo over here. There's the clear background. Carter's has the white background on their transfer, so it actually looks like a sewn-in tag. There's like the whole white part. And that's just part of the aesthetics and personal preference of the company. Here's another example of the heat transfer, what I wanted to show you. So looking at this one, this is the final product where you can clearly see through and there's all the gray fabric. This is what it will look like before. It will come in a little plastic sheet. You'll iron transfer it on and then pull the plastic sheet off, and you won't see the background, but they could choose to have a white colored background with the gray shirt if they wanted. There's this new, sorry that was loud. There's this new way to, it's kind of like screen printing, but it's more of a stamp, and it's called ink print. It's just a new tagless ink printing alternative. I'm going to try and pull this video up. Oh, I don't think you guys can see it. Okay, hang on. Okay, whatever. Not a good experiment. But if you want to see this video, it's really cool, and it's a really, really inexpensive way to get the information on there. It doesn't last as long as the heat transfer. Okay, leather and imitation leather. Tags can be made out of leather or faux leather, and it is either embossed or printed with a brand name or logo, and then it's usually die cut into individual labels. Leather labels are sewn to either the inside or the outside of a garment. The only places that I've seen leather sewn on the inside of a garment is if you have like a leather jacket. Here's an example of Harley. If you have a really heavy jacket or some type of lining to protect the skin, or an item that you would obviously only wear something underneath it, like a camisole or something that would protect the skin. Otherwise, leather, you see it on jeans, the back of jeans, small tags on jeans, and then you see it a lot on purses or accessories. Same thing with suede. It's printed or embossed, and it's die cut. Again, can be sewn on the inside or the outside of a garment. You can get really cool shapes. Here's a pink kind of edge. Here's some cool swirly details. And I really liked this label. This is for selling a belt, and instead of having like a price tag on it, you weave the belt in and out of here, and that's how the consumer knows it's the K&M brand. Molded PVC rubber silicone. This is polyvinyl chloride synthetic rubber or silicone that's injection molded to create a 3D brand label where the surface has embossed or depressed portions that form a brand name or logo, and you can actually like feel the texture on these. These are typically sewn to the outside of garments or accessories. And my example on here, there's two examples of tags here. This is your woven tag, and this little one right here is your PVC rubber or silicone, and it's got the stamp of, I don't know, it kind of looks like a furly, you can't really tell, but that's an example of it on flip-flop. And here are some other examples where you will see PVC rubber or silicone tags or like brand identifiers. You see a lot of these either hanging on jeans or, I don't know, purses or I don't know, new coats or something when you buy them. It'll just be this little hang tag with the PVC brand identifier. Sometimes you'll see them on teddy bears, like in the side seam, there'll be that little rubber brand identifier. Here's a couple examples. And then on bags, you can get customized ones that are stamped right on the front. So you don't typically see this in apparel a lot because they tend to be kind of heavy. Here's just another example of where you could have a lightweight one in the side seam of a sweater. But typically, if you're going to do something on clothing using rubber or synthetic, you would want to use a rubber tape. This is the clear film of synthetic rubber tape that's printed or embossed on, and then it's cut into individual labels. So rubber tape is thinner and softer than the PVC labels and is typically sewn on the inside of garments. Here's a few examples. This is just like a chip clip holding on a tag that would be on the back of a neckline. Here's an example of another one sewn in the back of a neckline. And here's just an up close. This has sort of got a frosted look to it, but you can have them totally clear, frosted, colored, a lot of varieties. The important thing that we want to remember about ribbon tape is that ribbon tape is going to be woven fabric. And the rubber tape that we just went over is synthetic rubber. And again, the main way to tell the difference between your screen printed tape, your woven fabric tape, or rubber tape is you have to look at the inside of the tag. So for example, if this if this was made into a tag, you could easily look on the inside and see all these lines going back and forth, and you would know that that's woven. If you were going to use this as a tag, you would look on the underside of the tag and realize that it is blank, meaning it is screen printed on, which is ribbon tape is going to be woven. So this one is your printed. And then here's your example of the roll and how it's cut. So here's your different sizes, and each one is cut on the line and then sewn into the corresponding garment. Label cuts and folds. So garment labels can be cut and folded in a variety of ways depending upon the desired look that you want, the brand, the quality desired, comfort of the wear, and price point. So over here, this picture has a bunch of different examples of the different types of folds, and we'll go through each of those. First, we're going to go over label cuts, and then we'll do folds. The main types of label cuts are die cut, fuse cut, straight cut, and ultrasonic cut, which we're not going to go over in this lecture, but you can read more in your text if you want, and then laser cut. So die cut is the use of a metal die charge. It's a form with a sharp edge for cutting, and then there's pressure that's used to cut leather, suede, and other fabrics for size labels and garment labels, and sometimes just cute hang tags. So this is an example of what a metal die charge would look like. You'd put your fabric right in here, and these would be corresponding to the shape that you want. You'd apply pressure, and out comes your cute mustache shaped garment tag, or a little flower, some lips, or just your standard rectangular shape. Fuse, the heat seal. The fuse cut labels are cut with a hot knife, and you have to use synthetics. Using a hot knife on natural fibers won't give you the fuse cut look. And let's see, where did I leave off? So the edges are sealed, and this is the most versatile type of label available. They're perfect if you just want to fold corners under on one side, or if you just want to fold down one side. Sometimes the fuse cuts have an adhesive back, so you don't have to sew it down. You can stitch it down. And if you look at these examples here, here's an example of, let's say these three sides would be fuse cut and this side wouldn't, so it would fray over time. And all four sides of this are fuse cut, so the edges of this fabric, the synthetic fabric, is melted just enough so it won't fray. Okay, a straight cut is using, it's when you cut a label and finish the edges by turning back all of the raw edges so they can be sewn to the garment to prevent the label from raveling during wear or washing. So start over here with this picture on the right. You fold all four corners down. So here's where you would start. You'd fold in the edges to a point, and then you'd fold, fold, fold again, and then you turn it over and you stitch it down. This is typically done when there's going to be a lining, so the stitching isn't visible from the fashion side of the fabric because your tag is going to be on the inside. Laser cut is cutting woven labels using a laser beam to provide precision. You typically want to use a laser cut technique when you have unique shapes and cutouts. So for example, if you are, what's the company that does the crown? Is that Juicy Couture? Sometimes they'll use a laser cut to get the holes in the crown, or I don't know what brand this is, but they've got a pretty intricate shape too. Okay, label cuts and folds. The three main types of ways that labels are folded once they're produced is center fold, end fold, and then a miter fold. And this picture right here is an example of your miter fold. And this label also has the what's it called? The fuse cut across the top and the bottom, and then the ends here are not finished because they're going to be stitched down. Okay, centerfold, you can have printed or woven label that's folded in half from a loop, so it's going to come in a long one of those spools, and you can, once it's cut, you can either fold it horizontally or vertical and stitch it to the garment at the open end. So here's a bunch of different examples. Starting over here on the right, your loop fold, sometimes, or the center fold, sometimes called loop fold. So this would be in one long line, and you cut here, fold on this center line, and then you have this loop, and you stitch down the top part to the garment. This middle example is where you have a long, skinnier loop or skinnier spool. So the width of your label is narrower. Here's a little bit wider, a little bit narrower. And you fold it hot dog style. So it's longer and thinner, and then you stitch here. And here's a much smaller one that would just be in the side seam of something. And again, here's another example of your center fold. End fold is when you take a woven label that's finished on the top and bottom, and then the raw edges on the right and left are folded back to lie underneath the label, and then the right and left edges are stitched down. So here's your finished product where you have the left side and the right side. Those are folded under and stitched down. And here's an example of just how those are folded. And here's more examples. And you can tell that these are all woven by looking here, just the examples of looking on the back side. You can see all these long looper strings that tell you that it's a woven label. Okay, the miter, sometimes called mitered corner fold, is when you have a woven label that's finished on the top and the bottom with the raw edges left open at the right and left ends. The raw edges are folded back at right angles to form a U shape, and then those raw edges are stitched to the garment. And I put a bunch of different variety of U shapes. You can have, short and long. You can have kind of a tall and long one. Here is another, just a lot of different varieties of U shapes. Just wanted you to know that there's not only one, shape to a miter fold. And I forget why I put this picture in there, but I think it's just an example of a tag location. It should be down farther, but that's okay. Price classification for labels. When you're looking at a garment label, it is definitely a cue to the overall quality and the brand image. So price classifications for different label types. If a label in a garment is made out of taffeta twill, satin printed, or non-woven printed, or heat transfer, you can guess that the garment is going to be a low cost. Moderate cost garments will use satin woven and printed. Twill printed imitation leather suede, rubber label tape, non-woven printed and heat transfer, and then expensive garments will typically use damask woven leather and suede, molded PVC, rubber, and silicone. Garment regulations for textile products. In the U.S., the Federal Trade Commission, abbreviated FTC, has enacted laws regarding how apparel items must be labeled. All information should be presented in English, but some companies have provided additional translation on labels such as Spanish or French. I think the Spanish community is one of the largest and fastest growing communities in the United States. And then a lot of English companies will have French on there also because there's a lot of French-speaking communities in Canada. Labels must include fiber content, country of origin, the manufacturer, importer, or dealer ID number, and that is called the registered identification number, which will be abbreviated on the label as RN. It'll be the RN number. There's only one RN number per company. And then the label must include care symbols. So it has to have a care label that talks about washing and laundering. The voluntary label information, which almost all companies will include, is some type of brand designation or size designation. Laundering information. Care label is required by law to be permanently sewn to the garment, and it has to be legible for its useful life in order to provide the customer with a guide to refurbish the garment without causing damage. It's also a way to make sure that the company isn't liable for consumer laundering, like mislaundering. So if it says on there, do not iron on high heat, and then you iron it on high heat and you take it back to the retailer's going to say, it says on the care label not to do that. So that's a user error. The American Society for Testing Materials, called the ASTM, has developed very specific care symbols that are outlined. They're outlined in the order as they should appear in the garment care label. So it should start with washing, bleaching, drying, ironing, and dry cleaning. In your text on page 163, there's an up-close image of this, and for the activity that we do in class, or we'll get to that at the very end, but you want to be sure to use this as a reference when you're working on your activity. So be sure to go over it in a little bit more detail in your book. Okay, label placement. Garment labels are required by law to be in the apparel item. The location should be clearly marked and easy for the consumer to find, and designers or product developers have the choice that they can put all the information on one label, or they can put it in several labels, which is gaining a lot of popularity. So you'll see brand placement labels typically on the back of the neck that will have, oh, this is Nike size small. And then the garment label, which is the required information, usually in the side seam, which will say fiber content, RN number, washing instructions, etc. Okay, for class on Wednesday, the 23rd, I want you to go through your closet and bring an item with a unique label to share with the class. Don't wear this item to class because in order to show the labels, you'll have to turn it inside out. And I want you to be prepared to share the label type. Is it woven? Is it leather? Is it plastic? How is the label cut? How is it folded? As well as the fiber content, country of origin, the RN number, the care instruction, and then any additional voluntary information such as the size or the brand that's on the labels. And then also I want you to be able to interpret the symbols. So go ahead and get all this done before you come to class so we can share. And if you can't find anything unique, bring something simple and standard, but let me reinforce, do not wear this item to class. If you are wearing it, you will not be able to share. Okay, that is all.